Good soldiers follow orders.
The nightmares, the visions, the simulations, they're all over.
You don't believe me!
Oh, welcome back to the Frame Rate Podcast.
I have no depth perception with this helmet on.
Oh.
It's no wonder both sides lost the war.
It doesn't help that in that helmet, the visibility is really poor right here.
Yeah. I can't see anything.
Mine's a little better. I can't see like here.
And every time I breathe, it fogs up what little I can see.
Yeah. Hit the voiceover.
I don't think it's doing anything.
Must be dead.
Just like the rest of them.
Okay. Oh.
Guess what? It was me the whole time.
I was there.
I am not Tamura Morrison, although I wish I was.
Yeah, that would be quite nice.
You know, the guy who plays young Boba.
Yeah, what's his name?
Logan, whatever.
Daniel Logan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to his house.
Oh, what the?
Yeah, he wasn't there, but I've been to his house.
On your mission?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yep. I will not reveal where he lives, but yeah.
Boston.
No. Not Boston. Not Camino either. They destroyed that place.
Yeah. Gone too soon. Put the helmet on and couldn't put the helmet on in remembrance.
You're trying.
Anyways, welcome back to the Frame Rate Podcast. If for anyone who's listening on audio, you really missed the best part of
you could probably hear that it was a little different. Man, these guys' audio quality went back to their first 2 episodes. What happened?
We had clone helmets on because I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm a Star Wars
Again,
nerd.
the people on audio. He just gestured behind him to his bookshelf full of Star Wars trinkets.
Yep. I've spent an unholy amount of money on Star Wars in my lifetime.
Is it unholy?
Yeah. Let's crunch some numbers. So, that helmet, $145. This helmet, I bought it technically for...
Technically?
Yeah, well, I bought it secondhand.
You still bought it, though.
Yeah. Well, okay. I bought it for $100.
I bought it.
I bought it
technically
for $130.
I paid a guy to steal it for me.
It's originally resale of $300 and I think $75. So I would not have paid that much money.
A steal, as they say.
I have a Mandalorian helmet that is 3D printed that I made all myself. I have a droid back there that I made at Droid Depot. Helmet probably cost me like $100. Droid Depot droid cost me $150.
Too much.
The lightsaber hilt, not this one. That one came from the DI. This one, though. That one I waited in line. Paint you a scene. Me and my brother are at Galaxy's Edge. We're about to go, I think it's like Uga's Cantina of Trinkets or something.
Something like that.
Or is it Savi's Workshop? No, that's just that's just where you build the lightsabers.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, it's for anyone who doesn't know the names, because I don't. It's the store in Galaxy's Edge where you can like buy like the kyber
the main
crystals.
gift shop that isn't attached to the end of a ride.
Yeah. You have to wait in line to actually just go and look in there.
It makes sense.
So me and my brother just waltzed right on in and wandered around in that store for about like half hour, all while we were avoiding the Disney employee who was trying to tell us to leave because we thought that they were going to be like, you find everything okay? So they're following us around. We're walking away from them until we finally get cornered by like 4 Disney employees. And of course, they're in their Galaxy's Edge like persona. So they're like, traitor, what are you doing in the store? Don't you know there's Imperials about or something like that? And so they kicked us out. So then me and my brother waited in that line to go back in for like 3 hours. It was probably like 2 hours, but 2 hours in the Florida heat in the middle of summer. So by the time we actually got into the store, I was like, screw it, dude. I got to make this worth my while. Mm-hmm. So I bought a lightsaber. So did my brother. So that hilt was like $140.
Valid.
The droid was $130.
Which one?
This one. This one I got for free for winning Squid Game's board game that one of my wife's old coworkers was doing. It's like a competition for a raffle. And then he was like, "You can have some raffle tickets." And then he went, "You know what? You probably won't," because it was for like musical stuff. And if anyone knows me, I hate that. Like Broadway. So he was like, "You know what? How about instead I just keep the raffle tickets and I just give you something else?" And I was like, "Yeah, that works." And he was like, "Well, my mom works for Sensi." So yeah, I had a choice between like the Darth Vader Sensi, the Grogu one where the head like pops off, or the R2D2 one. And they all like have like, you can't see it on this because of the lighting's pretty poor. But it behind the Sensi is like a blue light that projects Princess Leia. So it's a cool little nod. All the other ones were really dumb. So I picked the R2D2 one.
Didn't want to behead Grogu?
No.
Quit eating the frog lady's eggs. That's a morbid image. I'm sorry.
So yeah. And that's, I also have a real lightsaber. Like a dueling one.
A real one?
Yeah. I have like a dueling one. That cost a lot of money. And then I've got lots of Legos. I've got like another picture. Yeah. So unholy amount of, I think we're at like probably $500. Yeah. Huh. Don't worry. I've spent more on Fortnite.
$19 Fortnite card. Who wants it?
Anyways, sorry to bore everyone with that stuff, but yeah, I like Star Wars.
I also like Star Wars. I have Star Wars stuff too, but this isn't my house.
Yeah, sorry, Trevor's.
Nor do I have a fun story of getting kicked out of a store at Disney World and going back in and buying something.
I think that's how Disney does it. Not to offend anyone who's a Disney person, but like, if you think about it, it's a pretty smart business plan. We make them wait 4 hours, and when they come in, they're just going to feel obligated to buy something because they waited 4 hours.
Well, I think it's part of it. It's just there's a lot of foot traffic, and it's not a big store.
No, it's not.
But it's a lot of room.
It's really cool. The stuff that they have at Galaxy's Edge, let me tell you, like, as a Star Wars fan, like, as a Star Wars fanatic, like, it's got to be one of my favorite places on Earth. Like, how real everything is. And I also really appreciate, I know it's like I'm a 25-year-old, so I shouldn't really be, like, oogling over Disney. But I think it's really cool that, like, the people there get into the story, right? Really, like, sells I'm in Star Wars.
Yeah, they're called cast members for a reason.
Yeah.
They get to go along and add to the magic. I guess my last note about Galaxy's Edge, just wish it wasn't sequel related, but whatever.
Well, occasionally they do some cool stuff and then they take it away and go back to the crap.
Yeah, it would just be way cooler if I felt like I was on Yavin 4 and not some rocky desert planet.
I mean, they never will because Disney is obsessed with their own trilogy, but I think that they would for sure attract more people if they were to, like, I mean, I think that Disney's obviously planning on it because they have plans to make the Star Wars parks huge. So I think that they have plans to do like a prequel park and then like a normal trilogy park. And,
One can only hope.
Mhm.
Because, like, I've seen the interior of Rise of the Resistance. They could 100% have an entire section of a Star Wars theme park be the interior of the Death Star. And
Absolutely.
you would feel like you're on
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah. If I don't get Little Wicket right there.
I'm not moving in the store. I just get poked. Sorry, man.
Oh, but yeah,
Point that thing somewhere else.
we're talking about Star Wars today. If you haven't picked up on that, we're talking about Star Wars because April is coming to an end and May is beginning, and May is kind of like unofficially Star Wars month.
It just starts off that way.
Yeah.
And then the vibe of May the 4th just kind of carries.
Yeah.
And because, like, there's, with what we're talking about with Star Wars Celebration and with Andor Season 2, there's just been a lot of Star Wars is going to be in the media for at least a month.
Yeah. So we thought that we would follow along and do that. So this first episode, we really wanted to talk about Star Wars Celebration Japan. And Star Wars Celebration, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of like, I was going to say E3, but probably people don't know what E3 is.
It's a biannual convention.
It's just
for Star Wars, but it's
just solely Star Wars.
It's closer like D3. E3 hasn't been a thing for a while.
Yeah. Well,
RIP
that's
E3, by the way. But
was
the D23 Disney's convention that they hold every year. Star Wars Celebration is biannual.
Yeah.
So every other year.
Yeah.
And this year
it's big every time, right? Like it originally started out as just like a Star Wars celebration, like a convention. Yeah. But then like Disney
bought Star Wars.
Well, Disney bought Star Wars, and then they started like seeing a lot of success from their Disney Plus stuff. So then they kind of started transitioning Star Wars Celebration into Star Wars D23 or whatever, right?
Yeah, it became a place that they could announce a lot.
Yeah.
And like, I don't honestly just add to the celebration because like no one loves Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, but they also hate it just as much.
Yeah.
So everyone that's there is excited as heck, but then
and
everyone
a lot of
at home following along is so disappointed, and it's what happens every time.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of stuff that happened that was announced this year that a couple of things that we saw coming because we've already kind of known, like Andor Season 2, and like we knew that we were getting a Mandalorian and Grogu movie.
There was sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
Just a lot of the things that were announced in Anaheim 2 years ago at the last Star Wars Celebration just got like updates. Like with The Mandalorian and Grogu, that was announced 2 years ago, but then this year they showed a trailer for it and talked more about it.
And I saw the leaked trailer. Let me tell you, I think it looks great.
It definitely feels like Mandalorian, at least just from what I could see.
Mm-hmm.
It just the way that shots are framed and the way the action goes. It's very like
hallway scene.
Yeah, Star Wars action with the Mandalorian. It isn't the most sophisticated thing in the world because most of the time they're just shooting at each other.
Well, and
but you always have one.
A lot of the
using a handheld something.
The Mandalorian also because Disney has started going away from CGI and going to practical effects. A lot of the Mandalorian stuff, and in that universe, right? So like Ahsoka and Boba Fett and probably Andor. Never watched it, but I'm gonna assume that like a lot of the action shots in there are all pretty clunky compared to the movies, and that's because originally when George Lucas made all these things, he made like Boba Fett didn't do much. And all of the characters that do a lot, like the clones or the Jedi, always CGI, right? So Disney's really dipping their toes in the water of having to figure out how to get people to do stunts in like a suit of fake armor that probably weighs like 20 to 30 pounds.
I would assume they have more than one set. They have a stunt set and they have a regular scene set.
Yes, but my point being
it probably is still pretty hefty though.
It wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to do it like quick, like how we see in the prequels. Yeah, is what I'm saying.
Just training, right?
Yeah, but that was announced. Super excited for that.
Can I say one more thing about it?
Yes,
that I'm really excited for. They announced like part of it that like they showed in the trailer is the Mandalorian takes over an AT-AT walker, and they announced that they built a practical set of an AT-AT. Obviously, I'm not gonna assume that they built a 75-foot tall walking machine, but like they built an outside set for it, and they built an interior for it, and that's awesome. So cool. Obviously, they had an interior set for it back in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
but like
you
it was
see very
only
little,
just
the little spot that he slides down and he goes. Yeah,
but like,
well, my light died.
The dark side, everybody.
Anyways, before we were so rudely interrupted.
Yeah, I'm just like, I love set design when it's good. I'm a big fan of that. And like with the Mandalorian, since they invented the volume for it, for people that don't know at home what the volume is, when they made the first season of Mandalorian, they made a new technology for essentially green screens. They took the technology that you use to create VR video games, have a video game engine, they create the world in it, and then they put that in millions of LCD screens behind the set, and then linked the tech, like pretty much making the camera almost a VR headset.
Yeah,
in essence. So
everywhere the camera moves, it shows that world because it's the screens are put in like a half circle wall. Sometimes they're in a full circle.
Yeah.
And like what Trevor was saying, everywhere that the camera points, you see the world from that like perspective. So if I was looking this way, then it would change. If it's a lot like, have you seen Mission Impossible? Do you know the scene in Mission Impossible where they flip up the screen? They're walking down the hallway.
That's MI5, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Where they
it's
use
basically
the invisibility screen.
If anyone knows that scene, it's basically just that, but bigger. Like, and it's huge. Like, it's not a small thing. Like, it's gotta be probably the hottest room on the planet,
or low key the loudest.
Yeah,
because every screen's got a big fan behind it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the power bill, but like
it's Disney.
Yeah, like that technology was like so revolutionary that it's being used
in everything now.
Yeah, obviously Disney uses it for most everything. Every single one of this series that you see that involves some kind of green screen, like fake environment on Disney Plus, they've used the volume for it in some degree. Obviously, they didn't like green and blue screens aren't gone forever.
Yeah, but they're transitioning a little more away because, like, when people are on a green screen, you know it's fake. This one, however, like when you watch The Mandalorian, there's some scenes where you're like,
it's blended really well.
Yeah.
Obviously, in some lighting situations, you can be like,
yeah. So
obviously, the Star Wars universe isn't real. None of it's real. We're not saying. I was watching Mandalorian, and I have to say, I think they really went to Tatooine, man.
That droid really did blow up. They were in the lava.
I knew it.
Set.
George Lucas, you've done it again.
So that was announced, or I guess shown more of. Andor Season 2 was shown more of, and it's actually going now.
Released last night.
And Trevor has been telling me about how great that is.
It's already fantastic.
I unfortunately don't have a Disney Plus subscription at the moment, so I am on Star Wars withdrawals, hence the reason why I keep buying things.
You know what you could do with that money?
You're right.
But I digress.
What else was announced? Oh, they announced my least favorite thing of all time. Not
all time?
Yes.
Your least favorite thing of all time is in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, actually. The Last Jedi. So
valid.
Not my least favorite. My least favorite thing announcement that come from this was a new turn-based video game. Not excited for that. Wish they would have given us Battlefront 3, and I believe the masses are behind me on that.
Yeah.
So EA, listen to your people. I know that's so hard for you guys. Listen to the people. No one wants Battlefield 1585.
Well, now that you say that, I'd like a Battlefield game where we all, like, no one fights because you all died from bloodletting because the doctors couldn't save you.
Yeah. Make Battlefront 3. So that was also announced. Anyway, so I started blasting.
Yeah. Rather than put your entire IP into Fortnite, your entire IP into your own IP.
Yeah. Listen to the fans, you know? Which, speaking of Fortnite, they did announce a lot of stuff because I know that Disney now owns part share in Epic Games.
They've got like a whole story thing going on in Fortnite now. Darth Jar Jar. You can play as Darth Jar Jar and previously only canon in a Lego show.
Now canon in Fortnite. For any of you old timers, you can go ahead and just skip past this.
Double tap on your screen to skip 10 seconds.
They're coming out with such cool stuff in Fortnite. And I know that that's a child's game. I still play it. They're coming out with a lot of cool stuff. And they're coming out with, like what you said, storylines. And each part of the month of May, like each week, is going to be a new phase. So I'm actually pretty excited for that. Because I think that Fortnite, that the engine that it uses to operate, has a lot of potential to be like a pretty good, like cartoon-esque video game, like Disney Infinity for Star Wars.
I mean, they had Star Wars in Disney Infinity, but yeah,
I don't know.
Battlefront 3 first, though.
Yes, Battlefront 3 first, please. Another thing that was announced is probably the thing that I'm the most excited for.
What a spectrum.
Yeah, the thing, easily the one project that I'm the most excited for. I am a sucker for anything in the Clone Wars animation. The Clone Wars animation, Dave Filoni, again. Dave Filoni can have my children. I love Dave Filoni. He is reviving Star Wars away from whoever's hands in Disney it was before.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah. Fire.
I don't know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she was.
Anyway, tell me more about Dave Filoni, please.
Yes. So his brainchild obviously is Star Wars: The Clone Wars. We've been seeing a little bit of this lately. In they've come out with like the Tales and the Jedi and Tales of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And then this new one is coming out is Tales of the Underworld. But they're releasing a show about Darth Maul. And Sam Witwer coming back to voice.
They are connected.
Yeah.
Sam Witwer is Maul.
And I also...
Even he's more Star Killer because it's literally his face.
I was going to say, I really like Sam Witwer. Appreciation post for Sam Witwer because he was easily one of the more hated characters in Star Wars when The Force Unleashed came out. People did not like that character.
Just overpowered.
He's just yeah, which makes sense for a video game, right? But people didn't like that character, and they were like, Darth Vader doesn't have an apprentice, blah 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 blah, whiny whiny whiny, you know.
No one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars
Right.
fans.
And so he had, I mean, obviously he loves Star Wars, but in my mind, like, you have no reason to come back, right? You tried your best to do a Star Wars project. People hated you. Why would you ever come back, right? It took Hayden Christensen like 20 years to make it back.
Bro made a farm.
Right?
He had to leave the haters behind so bad he turned.
And easily Star Wars ruined his career so much at the time that he left like
acting
Hollywood entirely.
Poor guy.
Sam Witwer had no reason to come back, but he did. And he took it, like, him and Dave Filoni took a chance by bringing him in as Maul on the Clone Wars show. And let me tell you, dude, that guy killed it. Like,
yeah, he's incredible.
He is. His vocal range and voice acting, like, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because he does a lot of other. He's mostly known for Darth Maul. I don't know him off the top of my head. Please admonish me. He does do other voice acting for Star Wars, right?
Yeah, a lot of like typically what you see when, especially with like Lucasfilm animation, is like they'll have their cast, but like they'll like voice actors are extremely talented individuals.
Yeah.
They're able to do nearly everything you ask them to.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy for directors of certain projects to like, okay, hey, we hired you on to play this part. Would you be willing to maybe voice like this background character in this scene? Like, this is what I'm looking for. Give it a shot. Then they try it, like, perfect.
Yeah. Well, and so it just makes me very happy that he's continuing to get the love that he's getting. I do think it's awesome too. I don't know if anybody else thinks it's cool, but in the Ahsoka show, there was an Inquisitor named Merrick. Let me just take you guys down a rabbit hole here. Bear with me. The Inquisitor's name is Merrick. In the Star Wars The Force Unleashed show, Sam Witwer's character is named Galen Merrick. So, at the time of the Ahsoka show, everybody thought that this would be the first, like this, because everybody now, like just like Tron, everybody now is like, make Starkiller canon, right?
They low-key kind of did. Not really, but like in Andor Season 1, Luthen, the guy who is he's secretly running, like he's pretty much one of the reasons the rebellion became what it was. It's what Andor's about. But he has a facade where he's an antiques dealer and a collector, and he has on an armor stand the armor that Starkiller wears in Force Unleashed, and so a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they did it.
But like a lot of people have been calling for that. And so a lot of people thought at that time, oh, this might be the first actual time that we see Starkiller. He may not be the same Starkiller that we saw, right? But this could be their chance to actually introduce Galen Merrick to the storyline. And then it's revealed that Merrick is just like a Night Sister puppet. It's just gas. And everybody was pissed. And so I think it's really cool that in this show, again, I don't know if this is intentional or if anyone else caught on this. It just could be my brain. But in the trailer for the show, I know that they show Maul fighting Merrick. And I went, that's kind of funny that Sam Witwer's character is fighting the character that everybody thought Sam Witwer was going to be. Anyways, that was shown and really excited for that. Also, Maul gets to train his Twi'lek apprentice, which has been a thing that people have been calling for a long time because it was originally a novel and a comic book.
Yeah, it was a novel that didn't work, so they made it a comic and it worked.
Yeah, and then when Disney bought it out, all of that stuff was moved into Legends, and so then it was just not a thing. But everybody's been wanting it.
Yeah,
she's pretty cool. So that's exciting. I'm excited for that. Again, it's in the Clone Wars. It's in Lucasfilm Animation, and I just love Lucasfilm Animation. And watching it progressively get like better over the years,
Yeah, I wonder how long. Like, I don't know if they announced if this was just like a one-time standalone series thing, or like if it could turn into a multi-season thing. I would assume it'd be similar to Bad Batch,
Mm-hmm.
like max 3 seasons, because
Yeah.
I don't know how much story you could like
Well,
fully tell.
right. It's got a very short timeline too. And I think in
Yeah,
the Star Wars universe, it takes place during like the 2 to 3 year span. How long is it from A New Hope? I think A New Hope is 18 BBY.
between what Revenge of the Sith and
Yeah,
The New
I think
Hope,
it's only like
19 years.
Yeah.
Luke's 19.
Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
very long, and there's not a whole lot that really goes on.
And he has to go to his Rebels stuff.
Right. And
So-
Rebels takes place like I think it's 5 to 6 years before A New Hope.
Which makes Leia's inclusion even weirder. Isn't she like 14?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really weird. Anyways,
Whatever.
but I'm excited for that. Sorry I've gone on that rant. I just have to pay tribute. I have to give credit where it's due, because they had this awesome moment where they not only thanked like Dave Filoni, but they thanked then they paid tribute to the 20 years or so 20 years of Lucasfilm animation. And they have this really cool poster where they show all of the characters that have ever been made. Oh, look at that. Chills. Thought it was really awesome.
Obviously, not like literally all of them. That'd be a
Right.
lot,
But all of the key characters.
all the ones you could recognize.
And people that people loved or hated. So Lucasfilm Animation continues to have my heart when it comes to Star Wars. I love that stuff.
They're honestly like the one branch of Lucasfilm that still kind of has the heart of George Lucas as a part of it. Obviously, he's not involved anymore, but like it's one of the few passion projects that he got to start, is doing all that.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like Dave Filoni so much, is that he was like George Lucas's protege. George Lucas took Dave Filoni under his arm, and he's like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this right.
And George Lucas watched the Avatar: The Last Airbender, was like, wow, who made this?
Oh, so I really enjoy that. And I think
Star Wars fans
I
feel
think
something.
that I think that the success of the Bad Batch is what's leading to more and more, because the Bad Batch came out and people kind of they released the final season of the Clone Wars, and the Bad Batch came out, and everyone was like, oh, this is going to be like our final goodbye to this era of Star Wars, and in turn, this animation style of Star Wars. And then Bad Batch did so well that then Lucasfilm, I think, was like, oh, we probably shouldn't kill this thing in the past like we've done with everything else. Anyways, so it's nice to see these other little bits and pieces come out, like the Tales. Really enjoyed those, and then this, and obviously Bad Batch. But anyway, I digress. I can go on all day about this stuff, but
maybe you'll have your chance.
Maybe.
I guess you had briefly mentioned it in our little discussion, but they did announce more about Ahsoka season 2.
And Hayden Christensen's coming back.
Yeah, he is returning. Obviously, he won't be alive.
Probably in the same roles that it was in the first season. I think that I honestly hope that he has a little more in the show.
I think he will.
Right.
It feels like one of those things that will actually really, Disney only listens to its fan base when it comes to their TV series, and that's a maybe. But people calling for Hayden Christensen to come back, comes back in Obi-Wan Kenobi and in Ahsoka season 1. Everyone is going crazy, getting the love he's deserved for several decades at this point. And now he'll be coming back, probably once again, a dream kind of thing. He was a Force ghost at the conclusion of season 1. I would expect him to stay that way.
Yeah.
Train somehow.
Yeah. And I really, I love Hayden Christensen is probably one of my favorite actors ever because he plays my favorite character in movies ever. I love Anakin. I mean, despite all of the quirkiness that he went through with George Lucas, I love Anakin. And as a kid, you were dressed up as Tron. I have probably the single greatest costume ever made by my mother. So good that it could easily have been used for like film adaptation.
I could have been a youngling for real.
Yeah. I could have got chopped down by it. No, it was so good. And Mama Tina, props. Like, your costume skills were unmatched as a kid. But this Anakin Skywalker one, amazing. He's my favorite character. So it makes me very, very, very happy that he has recognized and gotten a lot of love from the fandom and has decided to step back into that role. Because again, Star Wars arguably killed his career in Hollywood. So it's nice to see that he's getting the love and recognition that he deserved, and continues to deserve for that part, and is now coming back to Lucasfilm and doing things with Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
I love seeing him. I'm there for any project that they decide to insert him in. Love it.
Yeah. And
Ahsoka season 2 I'm excited for because again, it's just like Anakin season 0.5.
Yeah. And they announced who they were recasting for Baylan Skoll as Ray Stevenson passed away. Rory McCann, Scottish actor, burly dude. He'll do a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for that one too. He was a good character. Really unfortunate. And I'm glad that they're continuing Ray Stevenson's character storyline and in this way.
Yeah.
Good on Disney for that.
Obviously, sometimes it's really hard to decide if recasting a character is a good idea in some respects, like with Chadwick Boseman and Black Panther. It was a good decision not to recast him.
Yeah.
It's just the way they went about working around that was tough.
Yeah.
But
Star Wars fans were calling for it because they liked that character so much. And a lot of people were like, do Ray Stevens justice and continue his character. Right. Yeah. And so it's nice to see that. And it was kind of cool to hear Dave Filoni's thoughts on that. But
let's see.
They announced a Ryan Gosling movie.
Well, they announced a Star Wars movie.
You're right.
Directed by Sean Levy, starring Ryan Gosling, entitled Star Wars Starfighter. What could be really funny that I could see Sean Levy doing, because bro is funny. It's called Starfighter. It has nothing to do with spaceships.
He's probably someone who
he's a fighter among the stars.
I would say he's a guy who does janitorial work in the Starfighter wing, and he's like, man, if only I could fly.
One day I'll be a pilot.
Opening pan, it's the Star Wars fade in after the scroll, and it's and that's why I wish that I could be a starfighter. That's not me. That's me.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Though, I'm excited for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'm kind of worried about is
that the sequels.
Well, it takes place 5 years afterward. Honestly,
somehow Palpatine returned.
Having stories take place after the Empire falls is fine, and having stories that take place after the First Order falls is fine too.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a matter of how you go about that, because that means you're writing entirely new lore. You're not including your new lore into the already established lore. You're kind of just the already established lore up to this point is the past. We are deciding the future, and you're letting Sean Levy do it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a movie. It's probably going to be the first Star Wars movie that is objectively supposed to be a comedy while also being dramatic and connecting you to the Star Wars as a whole
timeline. Yeah.
And like Ryan Gosling's great. I love Ryan Gosling. He's a great actor, and he's always a fun time.
It's hard to picture him in a Star Wars role for me.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But like, will he be playing himself? Will he be an alien?
Will he be Ken?
Probably not.
I wish that they would make more stuff in the prequel era or before the prequels. I know they've been writing books, and I know that the Acolyte takes place in the prequel era, but also
way before that.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. It takes place before the prequel era in the High Republic, but also it's not in the High Republic. It's like in between the High Republic and Episode 1.
Truthfully,
It's like I think it's like what 40 to 100 years
No
before, because Darth Plagueis is showed at the very end of it.
well, Darth Plagueis lived a really long time.
Right, but my point is that there's a connection to the main storyline, and I would like to see the Old Republic explored a little more. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. They have easily the easiest fan service, like Star Wars IP available to them, and they continually go.
Yeah, it's
Rey,
yeah, it's
or sequel trilogy that no one liked, or Book of Boba Fett.
yeah, it's
Like a manta. Yeah, yeah. For those who are not watching, Trevor just did a dance.
spin around. Like, it's one of those things that I feel like if the Acolyte had done well, then there probably would have been another High Republic thing announced.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would have assumed that Acolyte obviously was their first attempt to like step their foot into that pool.
Yeah.
And because they didn't get a good reaction from the fan base on how they did it,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably going to be really hesitant to do it in any way.
Yeah.
Because, like, from my understanding, I haven't read any of them, but the Legends books about the High Republic are praised.
Mm-hmm.
People like them and
Yeah.
enjoy
I've
them.
read a couple of them. They're great.
It's just like, how do you translate that into film properly? And, like, you have the old video games with the Old Republic,
Yeah.
and like those are all beloved and high praise, and
It's like a
Disney
high risk,
might-
high reward
yeah,
kind of thing.
They might feel like that is satisfying enough because Disney's definitely all about progress forward.
Mm-hmm.
They've all just been coming out with things that are just progress.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mandalorian, luckily, is still like an in between the original trilogy and the sequels, but like it's all about like what is happening with the characters we know and how is it going, and then occasionally we'll introduce something brand new.
Mm-hmm.
But it's forward. We're going
Yeah.
forward, which like
I think they're trying to connect the timelines.
yeah, but like it makes you wonder like what is the Star Wars universe going to look like in like 30 years? Are we going to be like, is the original trilogy going to be beloved, but like that era of time completely forgotten? We're already established, like new trilogies out.
Yeah.
We're here now.
Well, and I'm very hesitant. I love the Star Wars stuff that's coming out, and I will consume just about all of it because I love Star Wars. With that being said, to me, Star Wars is the Skywalker family, right? Everything that is set in motion, everything that Star Wars is due directly in some shape or form to a Skywalker, right? And I know that Rey's a Skywalker. That's bullcrap. But she's not to me, right? Like the Skywalker family is dead, right? So I'm not a fan of them going forward like super big and introducing new stuff, right? Because again, like you said, what do you introduce, right? We've seen the Empire in 3 different iterations, right? Total galaxy control in 3 iterations, right? Not to say that the storylines have gotten watered down, but it's a tad watered down.
It's hard to come up with, like, because the Star Wars universe is so vast. There's a whole galaxy of stuff going on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really hard to kind of create a broad antagonist that isn't just
The Empire.
government
Yeah.
that is bad, that controlling everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, not a huge fan of the First Order, but again, like, it's a big.
There has to be something there that there is some resistance to.
Yeah, because like I feel like if it's an individual entity, like a person or a small group of people that is the enemy, then it works for a TV series. And if it's a trilogy, it has to be something really big that has to be kind of galaxy wide. Otherwise, what's the point in going from planet to planet without seeing the threat? How do you make how would you introduce, like, we have one Sith Lord, it's just him. He's gathered some followers. He doesn't have a ton of influence over the galaxy, but he's a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Right? Would that work?
No.
Probably not.
Right. So, but that's like my biggest concern with them going forward is that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to hit as hard as they have without the Skywalkers in some shape or form. Right. And I think that that's why the sequel trilogy is so hard for me to watch as a fan, but just from like my own personal like love for Star Wars. I love the Skywalker family, right? Easily some of the most relatable characters in my childhood for some reason. My parents were the Empire. No. But like that's it's not necessarily like those are characters I've grown to love, but it's a family that like runs Star Wars, right? Because everything is set in place by them. Everything, right? And just now there's none of those, right? And they started killing them off in the sequel trilogy, and that's when I started losing interest because I'm like, there's nothing left that ties me to this, right? You had a character that would have been a great tie and segue into the Skywalker future, and you killed him and replaced him with a Palpatine. So like
with no explanation as to where the Palpatine came from.
It's like thin ice for me going forward because I want everything to succeed, but in my mind, I don't see how it does without having the Skywalker family in there, right? Because it's not Star Wars without a Skywalker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why the projects that have had them not in there have struggled so hard, right? There's always a tie and a connection to the Skywalker family, except for 2 shows, right?
And even then,
like the Book of Boba Fett and the Acolyte don't show any mention of the Skywalkers at all, and those are arguably the worst 2 shows that Disney's put out, right? Then they show Luke die, also one of the worst iterations, right? Rogue One and in turn Andor is connected through Princess Leia, and the Mandalorians got Ahsoka and Luke, right?
Yeah,
there's connections.
Yeah, I think like the one thing that kind of gives me hope, I guess, as to how like Disney's taking on like live action future was like I recently, and by recently I mean like maybe like 2-3 months ago, watched all of Skeleton Crew.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Skeleton Crew. It was adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a genuine, like fun, like good time. Obviously, it's meant for like slightly younger audiences, but it's not like pandering to them the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You still are feeling genuine connection with all of these kids and like feel sorry if you haven't watched it, the spoilers, like the betrayal when Jude Law turns on the kids for his own personal gain, but like the whole time obviously it's a separate, there's no mention of Skywalkers because the whole thing is that the kids live on a planet that is isolated from the rest of the galaxy. Like literally they do not know anything outside of their own home.
Yeah.
so there's no connection to Skywalker, but like it was
still
good. Like good. Like it's a new story.
Yeah.
That worked.
Well, and I guess Andor is connected through Rogue One, but
there's no direct mention of like the Skywalkers or Jedi of any kind. There's like, you know, the fall of the Republic and like the rise of the Empire, but it's not like they talk about how the Jedi betrayed the Republic and the clones killed them or whatever.
So that's my final thoughts. That's just where I'm going to leave it, because obviously, again, I can go on this. And obviously, we'll probably have more episodes where we can go on a little more of these rants. This isn't an episode designed for that. This is just me saying, movie-wise, I'm hesitant. And that's kind of why I wish that they would make more in the eras that I grew up on, because those are stuff that I can get behind and I can be like, yeah, I like that, right? The clones. Awesome storylines to explore.
If anyone connected to Lucasfilm or Disney's Star Wars section is listening in any way, me personally, make something Dooku related.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it like a Tales of something. Like, obviously you can't do live action. Christopher Lee's been dead for a while now.
They could do it like in the Clone Wars animation, though. Like
make a Dooku show. Or a General Grievous show.
I would love to see an Obi-Wan show before he gets Anakin. Right?
Him and Qui-Gon together?
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff that's mentioned in Clone Wars, like Satine, right? There's a lot of stuff in there that is explorable, right? So
it's obviously it's hard. It's hard to make something when you already know how it ends.
Yeah.
You can't fully get the closure you want because you already know how Dooku's story ends, how Obi-Wan's story ends.
No, but they could help you. It could help you relate to it, right?
Really develops it. It's why like Clone Wars was made, right? Like you already know what happens to Anakin.
But it makes you love Anakin and makes Anakin's betrayal hit so much harder. I think that's why I think a Dooku show would be great, right? Because we know that Dooku dies, but we also in the Tales we see the rise and like the slow turn of Dooku.
Yeah, we know that he like genuinely thinks that like the separatist regime and the separatist agenda and what like obviously as an apprentice to Darth Sidious, like having the Sith control, but like he was the leader of the separatists.
Mm-hmm.
He was their chancellor.
Well, and it'd be cool to see him dive into a little more of why he doesn't necessarily think that. Like,
from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Right. He's not necessarily an evil person when he starts out, right? He does it all for good intentions. So so that was stuff that was announced. There's obviously me and Trevor could go on for days about stuff we want.
I guess last announcement was that the next Star Wars celebration takes place in Los Angeles in 2027 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Star Wars.
Yeah. And
might try to go to that.
Yeah.
Not hard to get there.
I will probably convince my wife.
Here's Star Wars money.
Yeah, I need to.
It's 2 years. We've got lots of time to plan. But
yeah. We're really excited for the month of May. Tristan more probably. This stuff is like
Tristan excited. Tristan look forward to Star Wars May.
Since we started this podcast, this has been something that has like been storing inside of me, and I'm like about to explode because I love talking about Star Wars, and I think it's fun. And I love talking to Star Wars to people who have no idea what I'm talking about, right? So and now I have Trevor, who is a great talking medium because Trevor gives back. Trevor knows what I'm talking about.
I don't have to talk to my helmet all the time. Hey. The sequel sucked. Yes, they did, Tristan. Yes, they did. But
talking to the man in the mirror.
That's all I have to say.
Where can they find us, Trevor?
TikTok @frameratepodcast. Instagram @frame_ratepod. Spotify, Frame Rate Podcast. Apple Podcast, Frame Rate Podcast. iHeartRadio, Frame Rate Podcast. Amazon Music, Frame Rate Podcast. YouTube, Frame Rate Podcast. Did I miss anything?
You're good.
Okay, phew.